Good morning. So let's pick up from where we left off yesterday. Today, Mitzvah Hashem, we will be learning the Bash and the Cham. But before we do that, I would like to draw your attention to source 2 on the sheet, which is a Bach. The Bach brings a smag, the opinion of the smag, Sefer Mitzvahs Gadol. As we understood yesterday from the Sugya in Bava Basra, it would appear that a simple understanding of the Sugya is that Minat Torah, so it would appear, Minat Torah, I think this is how that was the appropriate conclusion, that Minat Torah it would seem that Kiddushin Bal Korcha should work. The same way that Halacha L'Maisa with commercial transactions, compelled or coerced commercial transactions, if we're assuming all else being equal, that a fair market value is realized, etc. Halacha l'maisas tolu v'zovin zvina zvina. If you force somebody to sell something, it's a good sale. And the Gemara itself seems to compare Kiddushin to this, which itself raises some interesting questions, the nature of that analogy, yeah? But the way the Gemara puts it, Ameimer is of the opinion, let's just remind ourselves very briefly, the Gemara Bava Basra, Ameimer is of the opinion, Tolu v'kodesh Kiddushin, it actually works. Ma'abar Rav Ashi, who says it doesn't work, is only, it's a drabonon. They penalized him, why? Because who asa shaloi kahoigen? Because he acted inappropriately, and he was mekadosh in Shabbat Korcha, which Chazal said you shouldn't do. But Meikar Adin, of course, it would be valued. So what did they do? They had to utilize the special license granted to them, called the Mekadosh Adat and the Rabbanon Mekadosh, and they uprooted the Kiddushin, but there is Kiddushin. So far, we have not come across any opinion that would say that Kiddushin does, in essence, Be'etzem, fundamentally, the Kiddushin does not work Bal Korcha. Now to introduce you to somebody who says that it does. Yes?
I have a question regarding the fact that we assume now that it's the Oraisa because there's a reading that it seems logical to be read like this, that there's no fundamental steer insofar as they would disagree.
More than that, there's no stira. We only have 2 opinions.
Yeah, okay, so there's no machlokes whether this is the Oraisa or not, that fundamentally the Oraisa would agree that
it would appear, yes.
No, because there's no contradiction that is apparent on that level. Now, my question is, because there is no pasuk from the Chumash that's brought, let's say, to support that, we extract from the fact that there is no machlokes, we say now it's assumed to be the Oraisa. Is that an assumption that's generally made, or do we have other sources? You understand my question?
I was with you till the last 20 seconds.
So, here we say, it seems that this is the Oraisa because Ameimer and Rav Ashi, they don't disagree fundamentally, it seems, on the Oraisa level.
Yeah.
So I can see that and I can understand why we could make that statement. Now, the jump from saying there's no fundamental machlokas on that fundamental principle, which we then termed the Oraisa, how do we get to the fact that it is now the Oraisa? Because we don't have just the fact that they don't have a fundamental machlokas doesn't mean necessarily that it's the Oraisa. You understand?
Now I'm with you. So really, really interesting. Really, you're asking I'm beginning to understand your way of thinking. You're asking a methodological question.
Exactly.
A procedural question.
Yes.
But more than just procedural, that's too dry, too technical. You're sort of asking a meta, so to speak, a meta halachic question or a meta Gemara question. And that is as follows. Upon whom is the burden of proof? What's the default? You with me?
Not sure.
What would you say? Let's say you have not. Let's say you hadn't learned this Gemara yesterday, this Gemara Bava Basra, and you weren't familiar with this. And I would say to you, Eli, I want to ask you a question. Being mekadosh a woman Bal Korcha, does it work? What do you think?
I would have an intuitive answer. That wouldn't be sure, and I would say I don't know. I'll have to check.
So,
still
correct.
see if
Correct. So
it
let's
says
see
something.
whether we fall foul of the necessary conditions for the creation of Kiddushin. What are those conditions? Is the threshold met? So there has to be Nesina. We know Ki Yikach Ish Isha. He has to give her something. There's Kesed, there's Shtar, there's Bia. And is it met? Well, maybe it is. So then, what we would try and... In other words, you're asking a really good question. Kind of almost what is the default? Is the onus upon whoever, it's the Gemara, the Poskim, to prove that it's no good, or to prove that it is good? You with me? If you want to go and dig really deep into that is kind of where we're coming from. And what the Gemara does in here in Bava Basra is creates a connection, an analogy. It says that the two, you can compare them. In other words, the format of kinyan and the threshold of da'as that is required b'toras hakinyonim for conducting commercial transactions to transfer title of property and ownership are, you see in the Gemara, analogous in this respect. Kiddushin is the same. We have a Gemara, we know that you should not be Mekadosh and Isha Bal Korcha, right? And maybe we need to talk a bit more about that. That's the Gemara in the beginning of Kiddushin, right? Why it says Ha'isha Niknes and not a Ha'ish Mekadesh, to tell me that you shouldn't. The question is, does that mean we could really, perhaps we need to do more work on that Gemara in Kiddushin to understand, and maybe that will answer, as I'm saying this, the first statement of the Rambam, remember we saw yesterday, Ein ha'isha miskadeshes elo. In other words, maybe he's laying out that it's not like Bechira. And then we have a separate question. So we know, so if you say Ein ha'isha miskadeshes, but maybe b'diavad it kind of works, well, why would I have said that? You've said Ein ha'isha miskadeshes elo. So does he mean with that you shouldn't, or it doesn't work? You see, I'm not answering you, but because I'm not sure I have a good answer. Your question is a good one. The Gemara, it seems, has created and is happy to see this as analogous to Teres HaKinyonim in Mekach Memka, and on that basis, looking at Ameimer and Mabar Avashi, as we have done Kipshutoi, it would appear that Midoraisa it works. There's no reason to suggest it shouldn't work. Mm-hmm. Now, how are we now going to fit that in with, there are at least 3 Gemaras, in at least twice in Kiddushin, once in Yevamos, that Kiddushin should not be done Bal Korcha, and it seems that the way to resolve these Gemaras is by saying that you have Minatora, it would work, you shouldn't do it. And the question is, do the Rabbanon penalize somebody who is Mekadosh Bal Korcha? That's as far as we've got so far. Okay? Now let's have a look, and I think this goes very much to your point, by the way, is the Makor we're now going to see. The Bach. It's source 2 on your sheets. Zog the Bach. Eino Isha Miskadeshes Elo L'Rtzayno. Kosova Smag. Let's put it into context. 13th century, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah? Moshe Mikudzi. Kosova Smag. Shenemar v'holcha v'hoisa. What's like the Smag? The Smag is telling me that there is a posuk, there's a limud. Not, as we understood until now. If I would have asked you, and this is really what Eli is asking, kudos to you. Okay, we have a diuk in the Mishnah in Kiddushin, a woman shouldn't be in Miskadeshes Bal Korcha. Is that it? It's because of a diuk in a Mishnah? Does it have a source? Is it a svara? What is it? Like you said, intuitively, and by the way, you weren't necessarily wrong. We're going to learn a Rashi in a minute. Does it make sense without a posuk, to say that you can grab a woman, force her under the chuppah, and give her a ring and say Ariyat Makudeshasli. Does that make sense? Is that counterintuitive? Well, if you would say to me, well, that doesn't make sense, I'll say to you, by the way, forget a woman for a second, I take your house and I force you at gunpoint to sell me your house. Is that intuitive that it should work? Should be a valid sale? I don't think anybody would suggest, by the way, that it is okay to do it. We'd have to think about what are you over? What are you over? I don't know. I actually haven't thought about that. I need to look into the sugya. Yeah. But Talu V'Zovin, you did it. That's also counterintuitive. So why is it? I don't want to, I don't want to be controversial. Certainly not for the sake of it. But if for transferring for certain areas of kinyonim we see you don't require das, at least on the part of the person being makneh, then is it the same with might it be the same with an isha? Do we need a woman's das under the chuppah? It's not poshut. I keep alluding to a ran in Nedarim. If you remember, I mentioned a ran in Nedarim. I'm going to bring it in because I think it's going to be relevant. The ran in Nedarim says a woman is mafkeres atzma. That's all she does. It doesn't need positive das. She needs to agree, meaning she needs to vacate. I have to be careful how I use it, and I think we should look inside. I don't want to say it without looking at the words. It's a famous ran in Nedarim. I'm not saying necessarily all that the Rishonim agree with it, but it could be it's relevant in this context. Al kol ponim. What we see today is this smag is so far nothing short of revolutionary. Eino isha miskadeshes el l'ritzoino kosav asmag shenemar v'holcha v'hoisa le'ish acher v'holcha v'hoisa. She goes and she becomes. This is actually not in the context of Kiddushin. Ki yikach ish isha. This is in the context of v'holcha v'hoisa le'ish acher. She goes and marries somebody else. V'holcha v'hoisa. Mashmos hakra. The implication of the pasuk hamikra is shemiskadeshes midaita. It's a mashmos hakra. Interesting. He doesn't say it's a Yerushalmi. He is learning it as pshat in a pasuk. If I've understood the smag correctly, maybe I haven't. Mashmos hamikra. That's his makor. There's something called a mashmos hamikra. Fine. V'hava min a reish kiddushin zugesund. Hava min a reish kiddushin. Ha'ish niknis. Uparech v'nisni ha'ish kaina. So the Gemara asks over there, let it say ha'ish kaina. Kediktoni ha'ish mekadesh. And for stylistic consistency, as we have in the beginning of the second parak ha'ish mekadesh, you should also say at the beginning of the first parak ha'ish kaina. Umetaretz, the Gemara answers, you're right. We would like to maintain stylistic consistency, but itan kaina hava min bal korchu. Ha'ish niknis de midai to'in shaloi midat oloi. Mida'ato'in shaloi mida'atoloi. We need her das. Says the smag. How do I know we need her das? How did the Gemara know we need her das? Eifo katuv. Hateutzu mashma'ot hamikra. So mashma'ot in the pasuk. And now we have a smag. That means. Now, what's the question? Kobe, ask me a question. What's the next question? Now that we have the smag. What do you think is on the basis of what we've learnt so far? What do you think would be the next question? I think, if I may suggest...
What's the... we have to read the Gemara.
Oh! How is the smag going to learn the Gemara Bava Basra? The smag holds l'chura that's midoraisa. Yeah, al chavahoisa, mashmos hamikra, which means it's midoraisa. That means the mashmos hamikra pashtus means it's midoraisa. Midoraisa, you need a woman's das to be mekadeshna. So how do I learn this Gemara over here in Bava Basra? I have a memo telling me that you don't. Talu v'kiddush, kiddushin, kiddushin. And you have Mabaravashi saying, oh, well, really it does work, but midrabono. How is the smag going to... The smag is at odds with both opinions here in Bava Basra. That's, yeah? Put that on the shelf. We're going to have to deal with that. And to make matters more difficult, the Mesoros Hashas, on the side of the Gemara, the Mesoros Hashas, at the beginning of Kiddushin, I was thinking of maybe printing it out with the Mesoros Hashas on that Gemara, where, in fact, if you've got a Gemara Kiddushin here, sorry, if there's a Gemara Kiddushin, it would be very helpful. It won't, far left, all right, that's it. Oh, awesome. Kiddushin and Bava Basra are quite easy to spot at a distance. Smallest and the biggest. So I'm going to pass this around just to show it to you. Give me a second. So the Gemara sagt. Here we go. This Gemara that the Smag just quoted, right? The beginning of Kiddushin. Hava mina afil bakoch tono ishniknes de midato in shaloi midato loi. Now Rashi over here, just checking, make sure I'm not making a mistake here.
Where's it Gemara?
Kiddushin base on the base. Yeah? Give me a second. Rashi over here, Kiddushin base on the base on this Gemara says, absolutely nada. Zilch. The Mesoros Hashas brings on the side here, this little comment here, the Mesoros Hashas tells us to look in Rashi in Yevamos Yud Tes Omid Beis, and in Rashi Mem Daled Omid Aleph. Let's do so. I've put it for you on the sheet. This much I did do. Okay? So, let's see if we can work out what is Shittas Rashi on this vexing question of you can't be Mekadesh, shouldn't or can't be Mekadesh a woman Bal Korcha. Two Rashis here, source 3 and 4 on your sheets. Source 3, Rashi Meseches Kiddushin Mem Daled Omid Aleph. Kiddushin, there the Gemara says, Kiddushin Demidat, the Gemara there, if I'm not mistaken, is contrasting it with Yevamos, with Yibum. Yibum can be done Bal Korcha, famously, yeah? But says the Gemara, but Kiddushin is Midata, says Rashi, De Bo'inon Da'as Hamakne. 3-word Rashi. Do you know why Kiddushin is Midata? De Bo'inon Da'as Hamakne. Kiddushin requires the Da'as of the entity, the person, who is being? The other way around. The Makne, not the Koine.
The acquiring person.
No, and maybe it's just your English.
The person who's being bought.
Yes. Maybe that's what you meant.
Oh.
The makne, not the koine. Koine is the as ehrlich oder nicht ehrlich. Eigentlich? How do you say it? Really?
Ja,
Eigentlich die Verkäufer, nicht die Kaufer. Does that make sense?
Der Verkäufer.
Der Verkäufer, nicht der Kaufer. Right? The makne, not the koine, says Rashi. Yeah? Kiddushin de midata, de bo'inon da'as hamakne. There is an absolute requirement of da'as hamakne. So first of all, you see that Rashi looks at a woman's role under the chuppah as a makne. She's being makne something. Bo'inon da'as hamakne. What are your comments on that, Rashi, before we go any further?
Well, it's not like, it's one step more than the Ran.
For sure more than the Ran, very good,
more
yes,
than Mafkid,
definitely.
It's active.
Yes, active, good. And as if you were to learn that, Rashi, what would your thoughts be? Ha'ara, say maybe what's missing.
Well, also it seems like Rashi, like the Bach also, that's really the Oraisa. I mean, otherwise I would guess that Rashi would point it out that it has to.
I will give you half, but I'm going to disagree with you on half. You made two statements there. You said like the Bach, and you said it's D'Oraisa. I think I will agree with you that it's very probably D'Oraisa.
Well, he doesn't say so explicitly. Okay.
I'm actually with you on that bit. That kind of makes sense. That we are contrasting there in the Gemara, Yibum and Kiddushin at a D'Oraisa level. There's no reason to suggest that we're doing that at any level other than the Eraisa. But where I would disagree with you is that you equated Rashi and the Bach. Why would I suggest perhaps that this Rashi here in Kiddushin Mem Daled is not like the Bach? What do you think, Rabbi Say? Let me ask you differently.
Because
go on.
could still hold like the Ran, so to say that.
No. You don't need to go there. Much simpler. I'm a simple Jew. Simple svara. How am I trying? And let me ask you. Okay, I'll ask you the question. Why, according to Rashi, does Kiddushin can't be done Bal Korcha? Why? What's the basis for the objection? Why does Kiddushin have?
A makna, by definition, is willingly
Keep going. In other words,
selling something.
yes, but categorize the requirement. What's the Makayr? I've given the game away. Yeah. Rashi, just tell us, Bo'inon. What do you mean, why? Who said? The teretz is, like you said right at the beginning this morning, it's intuitive, it's a svara. Rashi here in Kiddushin clearly learns it's a svara. Bo'inon das hamakna. He doesn't need to tell us a Makayr. Don't posuk. Bo'inon das hamakna. You need finished. It's a svara. So that's not like the Bach. The Bach has a limud, mashmois akra. What would the Bach do without the mashmois akra? I don't know. You see that? Now I've set you up. Now we can enjoy or be discomforted by source 4. Kobe, say it. The next Rashi is a Rashi in Yevamos Yud Tes.
Kiddushin de Alma, v'alocha hoiso leish och midaito mashma.
Was sagt Rashi? There the Gemara is talking about Kiddushin. What does Rashi say?
He quotes a prophet.
She went to different persons.
Yeah. No. What's Rashi telling me? You should have fallen off your chair. Both of you.
I'm not sure what the Kiddushin de Alma means.
Doesn't matter. Kiddushin de Alma, that's just the heading with the Gemara. For our purposes, it doesn't matter. It's talking about Kiddushin, and the Gemara there is telling me that Kiddushin needs to be midas. Fine.
Is he saying that the apostle, the siman brought, is talking about the whole different case where she's not?
Well, they say the same thing. They both say it's mashma, that it's medaisa mashma.
No, but v'alocha hoiso leish achem. Went to different men. No.
That's the posuk that the
Smag is quoting the same.
Smag quoted the same posuk and drew the same conclusion. So we have a stira in Rashi. We have a contradiction in Rashi. Can you not be Mekadosh Nishma Bal Korcha? Why does Kiddushin have to be midas? Rashi in Kiddushin Mem Daled Amud Aleph zog the Bo'inon das hamakna. It's a svara. You need the das. Rashi in Yevamos says it's a limud. It's a posuk. V'holcha v'hoisa midato mashma. It's a posuk. By the way, interesting. It says mashma. Same notion as the smag. Mashmo sakro.
And we call that though a stira because the outcome is the same.
Of course, it's a stira. You're right. It's not a stira. Everybody agrees that you can't be Mekadosh Bal Korcha. That's a Gemara. There's no question. That's a Gemara in Kiddushin base on the base. Kiddushin Mem Daled, Yevamos Yud Tes. How are we going to square that with Bava Basra Mem Ches? A good to kasha, but that's got nothing to do with Rashi. But you definitely can't be Mekadosh Nishma Bal Korcha. The question is, why not? And now we have a Rashi that tells us in two different places, two totally different reasons as to why you can't be Mekadosh Nishma Bal Korcha. Is it just like you suggested? It's intuitive. It's a svara. You need a das of the makna. Or is it nothing to do with svara? It's a limud. It's exeris hakosu. V'holcha v'hoisa mashmo sakra. Don't know. My friends, this is a sorry.
Maybe it's both at the same time.
Now, obviously, it is, but it's still. But you can't just say that. That's not good enough. That's not. And by the way, it's not that. That's not. By the way, it's not necessarily the answer. It could be that there are two different things going on over here, and at different relative or in contrast to different processes and the threshold needed for each of these, that we need to invoke one or the other. And that in the context of the Gemara in Kiddushin, it was fundamentally necessary to use that, and then in Yevamah something else, but that's just speculation. But still, enjoy the kasha. I mean, it's, yeah? You don't see it as a...
No, I'm just wondering
Okay.
whether Kiddushin, the Alma, if that includes something that is not included in Kiddushin, the...
No, it means Kiddushin. Kiddushin, it means regular Kiddushin.
Exactly
I think it's, again, you have to look at the Gemara. I think it's contrasting it to, it's not Yud. I think there it's Mamar, or I think it's Yibam. It doesn't matter. We're talking about regular Kiddushin. Okay, Pashtus, it's a steer in Rashi, and something that the Achrayim and the Ulamai Yeshivas go to town on. But I felt it was worthwhile mentioning in our context. And the Mesilas Hashas points us in that direction. Now, one or two more bits and pieces here. Rashba, source 5. We'll learn a Rashba with you. And it is important because of the Bach. I just realized, because of the Beis Shmuel and Chalkas and Chaykik we're about to learn. Okay? Okay? Where we are at the moment, by the way, is, I think let's summarize where we're up to. I think the main problem that is facing us at the moment, and this is the one we're going to spend the next few days working on, is how do we resolve the apparent contradiction between Sugya de Alma in Kiddushin, in Yevamos, you can't be Mekadosh a woman Bal Korcha, and the Sugya in Bava Basra, where it seems, according to everybody, you can, you shouldn't, what's going on, right? Let's have a look at this Rashba. This is one of the, if not probably the main source on this topic. The Rashba is source 5 on your sheets. I'll do it, okay? Follow with me. V'yesh, this is in Kiddushin at the beginning. V'yesh mishehiksha. Says the Rashba, there are those who ask the following question. Afilu tanya ha'ish koina. The Gemara says, why does it say ha'ish on niknes and not ha'ish koina? Because if it would have said ha'ish koina, I would have thought what? I would have thought you can be Mekadosh a woman Bal Korcha. Frag the Gemara, frag the Rashba, so there are those that ask, Heichi have a sol kedatach de niknes Bal Korcha. How on earth would it have entered your mind to seriously suggest that you can be Mekadosh a woman Bal Korcha? Heichi motzinu makne Bal Korcha. Where do we find a concept? And it's interesting, he uses the notion of makne. Makne. So he's kind of not like the Ran, Eli, yeah? So he's saying there is a concept of being makne, and you can't get somebody to be makne something, Bal Korcha. So, niknes, koina, who cares? You're suggesting, the Gemara is suggesting, the reason it said isha niknes and not ish koina, isha niknes and not ish koina, because if it would have said ish koina, I seriously would have entertained the notion that you can force a woman under the chuppah. The question is what, Kobe? The question is, how would it have occurred to me that you can be Mekadosh? Where do we find Matzino Makna Bal Korcha? Surely that makes no sense. Says the Rashba, I'm sorry, das ist kein Kasha nicht. Whoever asked this question forgot. Literally, it slipped from him, literally. It's a good word to know. Ishtamitze. Yeah, nishmat. What? It slipped from him, he forgot. It's used, it's a polite way of saying you don't know what you're talking about. Kind of thing, yeah? Ishtamitze talu v'zovin zvina zvina. That person forgot the Gemara Bava Basra. Where we learn in the Gemara Bava Basra, our Gemara, that you can, if you force somebody, if a forced sale is valid. V'talu av'kadosh kiddushin kiddushin. And a forced kiddushin is also a kiddushin. That's clear in the Gemara Bava Basra. So, therefore the question doesn't start. You can't say, it would not have entertained the notion you can be Mekadosh a woman Bal Korcha. Of course I would have done. Why not? You see in the Gemara Bava Basra, you can. Now here, by the way, he adds in a bit of svara here, which is important for us, based on the Gemara Bava Basra. Why does it taka work? Why indeed does it work? If you force a sale, Kobe, I force you to sell me your apartment, whatever it is. how come it taka works? You need the das of makna. One thing is for sure. Take a piece of leave Kiddushin for a second, but certainly the transfer of ownership of title of an item, you need the das of the makna to be makna. Otherwise, there's no kinyan. I can't go around and be koine your thing against your will. That certainly doesn't work. So you don't want to sell it, and yet if I force you to sell it, then it works. Why is that? Says the Rashba, and he's really quoting a Gemara. Da agav unse de zuza gomra umaknia nafsha. Now he's talking about Kiddushin, but it's the same concept with a property. What happens is as follows. Of course we need your das. You need at some point to say, okay, I sell it. I don't want to sell it. I'm only doing it at gunpoint. But because it's at gunpoint, at the end, but I do give in. I get my market value. I don't want to. I like my house. It's inconvenient for me. I didn't want to do this. But because the gun is at my head, I therefore reluctantly take the money and I am makne it to you. And that's all. So a das makne, although under duress, is a das makne at the end of the day. Right? And what would be, let me give you an example, just to explain it slightly. What would be, let's not talk about you, let's talk about somebody else. Mr. X falls on hard times and he has no choice because of his debts. He has to sell his apartment, or he has to sell his Ferrari, his stamp collection, his whatever. Anybody who's ever been in that situation and you're forced to sell something you really don't want to sell, is the sale not valid? So it's a financial compulsion. This one is a physical compulsion with a gun. The concept is the same. You're doing something you'd rather not do. You really would rather not have debts. You really would rather not have a guy with a gun at your head. But in the final analysis, because of the various types of compulsion, you are makne. If that's the same thing with a Kiddushin. And now he's, that's Pshat. Eli, you're beginning to hear a svara. Da'agav unsa dezuzi gomra u'maknaya nafsha. Ka'ameimar the Islay Hochin b'perek chezkas. Yes? Says the Rashba that Ameima's opinion in Bava Basra is what? That if you force a woman under the chuppah and you give her a hariyat mukadeshesli with the tabas, she will reluctantly, but when she gives in and she sticks her finger out and accepts the ring, even though she didn't really want to, but she does at that moment because of the unsa de zuzi, or maybe because ultimately she doesn't want to be alone, whatever. She finally agrees. Right? And that, how does that stim? How does that work with the Gemara in Kiddushin? V'hocha lav bal korcha legamri ka'omar. When it says in Kiddushin that I might have thought that you could do it bal korcha, and therefore it comes along and says you shouldn't do it bal korcha, lav bal korcha legamri ka'omar. It doesn't mean totally against her will. Eloki hai gavna. This type of thing, this type of forcing, meaning you give her money and she reluctantly agrees under the chuppah. So it does work. It does work. And when the Gemara says in Kiddushin it doesn't work, is when it's properly bal korcha, where I don't know I have to think now about how that's going to work. So you have the Gemara Bava Basra, the Gemara in Kiddushin telling me that Kiddushin totally bal korcha doesn't work, but the type of bal korcha, which is a compulsion of money, compulsion of a gun, that does work, and that's Hameima. But the Rashba doesn't finish there. Kravashi, we actually pass on Kravashi. We pass like Mabaravashi that it doesn't work. Why midrabana? Dehu asa shlei kahagen, also le shlei kahagen. V'dukia dahacha Kravashi asya, and that's much easier. Says the Rashba. The Gemara in Kiddushin goes like Rav Ashi. So both are right. Both Gemaras are right. It both works and it doesn't work. What's the answer? Midday Raisa, it works. Rav agrees. Midday Raisa, it works. The Gemara in Kiddushin who's telling me you can't do an Ish Bal Korcha is after the Gzeira D'Rabbanan that they were mafkia the Kiddushin. You might have thought that since that midiraisa it works all together. So when we're learning Maseches Kiddushin, where it's telling me what works and what doesn't work, if it would have said, oh, ish kaina, I might have thought that if you force a woman and give her the money under the chuppah, that really does work. So you need to tell me. You need to tell me it doesn't work. Do you know why you need to tell me it doesn't work? Because really it does work. Because with the rice it does work. Therefore I need a Gemara and Kiddushin to come along and tell me it doesn't work. Meaning, what does it mean in the Gemara and Kiddushin it doesn't work? Midrabanon. They will mafkia the Kiddushin. That's how the Rashba learns the sugya in Kiddushin. So far so good? And we're kind of out of time. I can't start the Beish the Chalkas Mechokik now. Monday in Yitz Hashem, we will start the Chalkas Mechokik and the Beish Shmuel and an Avnei Miluim. Okay? So you've got enough time to do some Chazara, Beseda, Shkaya.